Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello, everybody. Welcome to one more week of the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. And this week, joining us from the US is Kulsoom Pervez. Hey, Kulsoom, welcome to the show.
Hey, Vasco. Thank you. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. So Kulsoom is passionate about constructing sustainable, resilient, and high-performing teams, consistently delivering value to customers through the transformative power of agility. I like that phrase. She embodies a leadership style that inspires, empowers, and fosters the growth of her colleagues. Kulsoom also enjoys reading and has dabbled in blogging, and we'll leave the link in the show notes for sure, if Kulsoom allows us, so that you can all go and check out her writing. So Kulsoom, that was a short intro. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and how did you end up becoming a Scrum Master?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Vasco. I've been working as a Scrum Master since quite a few years now. I started my IT journey as a business analyst and then moved on to project management, which was like so many of us, right? Quite organically. And then, it was around 2015 when a reorg happened in my company, and my boss, who was leading a very high visibility project, which was unfortunately not going very smooth at that point, he had to leave, and that project fell in my lap. And then suddenly I found myself in this very high pressure situation where I had a project which nobody had confidence in. And it was in waterfall way. And, my job, as well as people who were working on that, their jobs also kind of were dependent on this project. So I just did some research. I was familiar with iterative development. Then I started looking into that. I talked to a friend of mine who worked in Scrum project in another company. And then I thought, this could be a good thing for us to. So I just implemented certain things like daily stand-ups, which we called hurdles at that point, sprint reviews, and refining the work with the stakeholders. So ultimately, long story short, the project got completed successfully. It was a big win for us, and that's how I got converted to the world of power of agility.
It's funny. I'm also a recovering project manager.
Oh.
That's what I call myself, at least. It's funny how you describe it, because you were in the you had training in project management and you were doing waterfall project, but then you said, okay, this isn't going to work, right? And you were looking for something better. And I don't know if that happened to you, but very often I see people experimenting with agile, benefiting from it, but then going back to project management and waterfall. And then they say, basically, agile is just this little bit where the teams work and everything else is still waterfall.
Yeah.
For you, was that also the case, or did the agility start to spread outwards in that organization?
No, I think, Vasco, for me, agility was totally in sync with my own values and, my own thought process. So that's why I think I'm a strong believer in this. Like, I feel it. And I always say that stepping into the world of agile, that has literally transformed my life as well, even my personal life, so I'm very passionate about it. And I feel that Scrum or agile, Scrum is just a framework, right? So agile on a whole, it's just not a way to get software projects delivered. It's much more beyond that.
Okay, we'll dive into that, of course, throughout this whole week. And you did use the phrase transformative power of agility. And I guess that came with firsthand experience, as you just shared. So let's continue with a story of a difficult moment, because Scrum isn't only there to save us. Sometimes we get ourselves into trouble, even when using Agile, Scrum, or any other method. And that's the story we want to explore today, Kulsoom. So take us there, walk us through the steps, like what was happening at that time, and then help us understand how things developed and eventually you understood, okay, this is not going well. And we'll dive into the details and takeaways later, but share that story with us first.
Yeah, so I would not say that this is a story where I literally like got into trouble, but maybe I can frame it as one of the stories where probably things did not go the way I wanted them to, right? So maybe one of my like failure kind of stories. Not failure, again, learning opportunity. I believe failures are learning opportunities, and we should encourage talking about those. So I remember it was quite a few years ago. I got a team. We were in a scale program, and there was this team who was new to agile, and we were following Scrum at that point. And this team had a Scrum Master who was leaving the company, and so I was brought over. And I always have this reputation, Vasco, of getting things done. I don't know if it's coming from my project management DNA or something, but I'm always when brought with this notion. So I got this team, and I went with this determination that okay, they are new to Scrum, and our program was pretty mature at that point, and I was like, I have to get them ramped up very soon, right? So I think I got too much into teaching and advising mode, and that too very quickly, rather than taking my own time, understanding the team's current state and getting their confidence and all those kind of things, which I learned later on, of course, in my coaching journey.
Tell me a little bit more though. Like when you say I got into advising mode and directive mode too quickly. Of course, now you're talking from the perspective of hindsight, right? Like it happened in the past, and you're looking back and you're making or taking that conclusion. But when you were there, what were the signs, kind of the symptoms that maybe something was off? That of course later on you understood as maybe being too directive. But what were the things you were seeing happening to you at that time and to the team?
Right. I think I could now, when I realize, I feel like probably there was some kind of a change fatigue creeping in, because these people, for us, for me, it might be very simple. Oh, I just have to move them to Scrum and teach them about good practices and all those things. But for these people, we were asking them to change their ways of working, and they were leaving their comfort zone. They were also working on a product which was integrated into our bigger product ecosystem. So there were too many factors going on there, and they were not able to grasp everything. Like all my retros, I was directing at using them as teaching opportunities. I was also teaching them about planning poker and a lot of things. Right.
So there was a steep learning curve for the team.
There was a steep, yes. And I think, again, it depends on people to people. Now, I can, of course, sense who is ready for what, like what's their level. At that point, and now, again, in hindsight, now I realize that probably those people, those certain team members, they were not ready to go on such a steep learning curve. They wanted to take their own time, and then I think I could have paced it better.
So if you had the opportunity to go back in time and kind of go through that story again, what would you do differently? How would you ramp the team up without perhaps overwhelming them with change?
Yeah, very good question, and something that I learned the lesson, and I think now I do it this way, and my success and acceptance rate has gone a lot up. So now when I go to any team, first of all, Vasco, I don't go with any assumption or notions or anything, right? No agenda. I just go there, I observe them, I make them comfortable, first of all, because I realize that even getting a new Scrum Master, that's a big change. If it's an existing team and if they're working with a Scrum Master, right? So changing personality and all those kind of things. So I try to observe things. I try to have conversations with each and every member rather than just having group conversations. I understand their comfort level and also where are they coming from, their familiarity with Scrum, and also what are their current processes. Why are they doing that? Maybe few things are working with them. For us, for me, it might be new, but for them, it might be working well.
So what you're saying is that when you join a team, not only do you observe, which you mentioned, but also try to understand why they are where they are.
Yes.
Like try to understand why they're using certain practices. Maybe try to have a conversation about why did they come to those practices, where did those practices come, and so on. So that you understand the team in their own context, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You nailed it. Yes. And then, first, and doing all this, I think it gains their trust and confidence, because nobody wants someone to come and get this notion that, hey, I'm here to fix you, right? We are human beings. We don't want to be fixed. So that's something that I do differently now, and I would advise any new Scrum Master, because when we are new in this journey, sometimes we get too excited and we're like, we'll change the whole world.
And there's nothing wrong with the excitement, of course. Excitement is a good thing, but we need to be mindful of the consequences that excitement might have on people who are not in the same point of the journey we are.
Right. Because it's the same excitement that has served me well for some other teams where people were enthusiastic and they were like, yeah, bring it on. We want to learn new things, So then it was a great partnership. So we have to analyze the situation.
Yeah, and listen, right? Like I really like how you said that not only do you observe, but you also understand, because observing is one thing, but understanding what is going on from their perspective is a different step.
Right. We have to be curious. That's what I always say now. Bring your curiosity.
That's a beautiful phrase, but tell us a little bit more what you mean by this curiosity, because sometimes it's not so easy to unpack what that means. So from a perspective of the Scrum Master, what do you mean, bring your curiosity?
So same thing, Vasco. Like suppose if I will just take a simple example for story pointing, right? There are so many approaches out there. And I know there's this whole no estimates approach. So again, a lot of companies, they're still not ready for that yet. So we have to deal with real world. So I don't try to judge them, like if they're doing their story points in whatever manner, which might not be aligning with my methodology or thinking. But I try to I try to ask questions, or like if they are doing refinements in a different way. Then I try to ask questions that, is this, do you feel this is serving you well? Are there any challenges you're facing, or this is going all well? And then I also try to make my own list and then prioritize those. I don't want to impose all the changes at one go. That's the very wrong approach.
Yeah, don't impose all the changes in one go. I think a very useful heuristic for all of us Scrum Masters. Kulsoom, thank you very much for sharing that story with us.
Thank you.
Monday is about what we learn from our obstacles and our failures. But tomorrow is Team Tuesday here on the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. We explore teams and their journeys, the habits they develop that threaten their performance, how each of our guests help their teams evolve, and the one key lesson they learned from that experience. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.